It was an ordinary morning in the city. People hurried off to work, cafes opened their doors, and everything seemed like a typical start to a day. However, inside a modest police precinct in a quiet part of town, a decision was being made that would forever alter the lives of several officers. Two officers, known for their aggressive and domineering tactics, were patrolling the streets that day. They believed they were untouchable, convinced that they could do whatever they pleased, especially when dealing with civilians. What they didn't realize was that this was the day their arrogance would cost them dearly. As they drove through a residential area, they noticed a woman standing near a parked vehicle. She appeared calm and unassuming, dressed in simple clothing that didn't stand out. Without asking any questions, they decided she was a target for their intimidation. They approached her aggressively. What followed was both appalling and shocking. One officer slapped the woman hard across the face, while the other shouted at her to move on, treating her as if she were a criminal. Bystanders watched in horror, but kept their distance, not daring to intervene. What they didn't know was that this woman was not just any passerby. She wasn't an ordinary civilian. She was a senior officer in a specialized law enforcement division, and she wasn't one to let this injustice slide. Later that day, she returned to the same precinct. But this time, she wasn't in casual clothes. She walked in, donning the full uniform of the military police, and the room fell silent. The officers inside looked up, stunned by the sharpness of her presence. This woman was Major Sophia Grant, a well-respected officer with years of service, and now she was here to set things right. Behind her, two officials from the Internal Affairs Division followed her, ready to hold the officers accountable for their actions. The officers who had assaulted her, Detectives Blake and Davis, had earned a reputation not for upholding justice, but for using their badges to bully others. Their history of misconduct had always gone unchecked, thanks to their connections and their ability to manipulate the system. They thought they could get away with anything, but they were about to learn the hard way that not everyone could be intimidated. Earlier in the day, when they confronted her, they had no idea who she was. They had assumed she was just another person to push around. But she wasn't. She was waiting for her husband, who was picking up breakfast at a nearby cafe. Her government-issued vehicle, parked nearby, displayed her badge prominently. Still, the officers didn't care about any of that. They acted rashly, loud, and violent, with no thought of the consequences. After the incident, the woman didn't fight back. She didn't scream or lash out. Instead, she walked away, calmly telling the officers, "You have just made the worst decision of your careers." The officers laughed it off, clueless about what was coming. Hours later, the police precinct doors opened, and Major Grant, in full uniform, stepped inside. She exuded authority, her posture straight and her expression unreadable. The room fell into complete silence. The officers, caught off guard, immediately realized the gravity of the situation. Inside the captain's office, Major Grant laid out the entire sequence of events, keeping her composure the entire time. When the officers were called in to answer for their actions, they froze at the sight of her uniform. They tried to deny everything, but the evidence was irrefutable. Several videos had been recorded and sent directly to Internal Affairs. The footage was crystal clear, leaving the officers with no way to deny what they had done. It turned out that the woman they had slapped wasn't just any civilian. She was a decorated officer, and the entire incident had been captured on video. Worse still, it had happened while they were wearing their own police uniforms, representing the very institution they had now shamed. Major Grant remained calm, stating simply, "You will answer for this. This time, your badges won't protect you." The news spread rapidly. Headlines screamed of police officers assaulting a military officer. Social media buzzed with outrage. The mayor was forced to issue a public statement, promising that justice would be served. However, Major Grant, despite being the victim, refused to speak to the media. She wanted the case to be handled through legal channels, not through public spectacle. Her decision to stay out of the limelight only increased the respect people had for her. As the investigation progressed, the two officers were suspended, and more complaints surfaced about their previous behavior. 6 months later, the case reached court. The officers faced charges of assault, abuse of power, and misconduct. But the case didn't end there. It opened the door to a broader investigation into the entire department's culture. Complaints that had been ignored for years were now being revisited. The police chief was forced to resign, and sweeping reforms were announced. Training programs were overhauled, and internal affairs continued to dig deeper into the department's operations. The most powerful moment came when Major Grant took the stand to testify. She spoke about the slap, the silence of the bystanders, and how she chose not to respond with violence, but with strength and discipline. Her words resonated deeply in the courtroom, even with the judge who paused before delivering the verdict. Both officers were found guilty. They were stripped of their badges and sentenced to prison time. But their punishment didn't end there. They had become symbols of everything wrong with unchecked police power. Major Grant, however, was honored for her courage. The mayor awarded her the Medal of Honor for civil courage, not for fighting back with fists, but for standing firm in the face of injustice. Her story became a lesson for law enforcement agencies across the country. She returned to duty stronger and more respected than ever. This story is not just about two bad officers. It's about the power of integrity. It shows that even in the face of corruption, quiet strength and justice can prevail. It's a reminder that the strongest people are not those who yell the loudest or fight with violence, but those who stand up for what's right, even when the system tries to silence them. In the end, the story of Major Sophia Grant and the two rogue officers serves as a powerful reminder of the true meaning of justice. It's not about the loudest voice or the most aggressive actions. It's about standing firm in your values and confronting wrongdoing with integrity. Major Grant's calm demeanor in the face of brutality, her refusal to retaliate with violence, and her unwavering commitment to justice set her apart as a true leader. The officers who thought their badges would protect them from accountability learned the hard way that power, when abused, eventually crumbles. Their arrogance not only cost them their careers, but also sparked a larger conversation about police conduct, systemic corruption, and the need for reform within law enforcement. What they thought was a moment of unchecked authority turned out to be their downfall, as Major Grant's quiet strength exposed their misconduct for all to see. This incident also highlighted the importance of standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. The bystanders who recorded the event played a crucial role in holding the officers accountable. In an age where social media and video recordings have the power to bring the truth to light, the actions of the public cannot be underestimated. Major Grant's decision to stay out of the media spotlight, focusing instead on the legal process, showed that her pursuit of justice was about the cause, not the fame. Her story became a beacon of hope for those who feel voiceless, reminding them that change is possible when you refuse to stay silent. Moreover, this case was a turning point for the entire police department. The ensuing investigation exposed long-standing issues within the force and led to much-needed reforms. The chief's resignation and the overhaul of training programs were just the beginning. The department was forced to reckon with its own failures, and as a result, it moved towards a culture of greater accountability and transparency. Major Grant's bravery didn't just stop at securing justice for herself. It ignited a ripple effect that reverberated through the system, pushing for change where it was desperately needed. Her courage became an inspiration, not only for law enforcement officers, but for anyone fighting against systemic corruption and injustice. Her story proves that integrity, when coupled with quiet strength, can topple even the most deeply rooted systems of power. In a world where many are quick to resort to anger or violence, Major Grant's response to adversity shows that true strength often lies in choosing the path of justice with dignity and composure. Her victory wasn't just a personal triumph. It was a triumph for everyone who believes in the power of doing what's right, no matter the cost. This story, at its heart, reminds us that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the calm resolve to do what's right, no matter what.